How's it going? Welcome to the channel. My name is Ron, and you're watching the Standing Wolf Archery Podcast. Our guest today is a California bow hunter. He's going to be sharing with you guys a lot of cool stories, obviously a lot of success that he's had bow hunting over the years, but I think for sure, without question, you're going to absolutely love the story that he shares about his son's first hunt. And it is an absolute doozy. It probably doesn't get any better. You know, I'm really excited about this one. Let's jump right to it. Without further ado, I'd love to welcome Austin Caldwell to the Standing Wolf Archery Podcast. This is Ron. We're hanging with Austin Caldwell, the Cali bow hunter himself. You listen to the Standing Wolf Archery Podcast. Austin, so great to have you on here, man.
Thanks, brother. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, your account is super inspiring. Your Instagram, I'm going to recommend everyone checking it out after this. But man, I just love scrolling through it, like I just mentioned to you before. And dude, there's so many stories I'm going to be asking you about to talk about. And I think the first story I'd love to know is basically like, what was your upbringing like? Where'd you grow up? What was it like for you as a kid? Were you like an outdoorsy type of kid, or like just give us the whole pre-story to how everything got going for you?
Yeah. So when I kind of got it from my pops. My dad grew up in Hialeah, Florida, which is right on the border of the Everglades there. So he was always fishing and hunting and doing stuff like that. And then he moved out here, and he didn't really have any friends or anything that he could hunt with out here. But once I was old enough, I was in Little League, and another parent was actually into hunting. So we befriended him and started hunting. So that was kind of like the origin story of the hunting. But I did a lot of fishing and camping when I was a kid. I have pictures of my parents bathing me in creeks and stuff like that, camping and whatnot and fishing. So I've been fishing and stuff like that for a while. But hunting really started when I was right around 8 or 9, just doing upland game stuff. Really just bird dogging for my dad for that amount of time. I got my hunting license when I was 10, and kind of just went from there. Started doing real heavy, because here in California, you can't shoot any big game until you're 12.
Right.
And so pheasants, rabbits, all the stuff out here, squirrels, whatnot, doing a lot of that. And then I never really had any interest in the archery stuff until I was about 12 or 13, and then started doing archery. And I think I got my first archery buck when I was 13 or 14. And then when I was 15 or 16, I decided I was only going to do archery in this area. It allows you to get into a lot more places than you can with a firearm. You can hunt around houses a little bit easier. People are more lenient on allowing you to hunt on their property if you are using a bow. So that kind of helped out doing that. And here in California, especially in this area, Central Coast and up, there's a lot of pigs. And people just wanted all of them gone because they come into their property and tear up their gardens and whatnot. So that allowed me a good opportunity when I was 15, 16 to just go and kill as many pigs as I possibly can. And at the time, it was actually kind of nice, was you can get 5 pig tags for $7. Now
5%, the 5 for 7 deal.
Yeah. It was amazing. You get a booklet and you're good. But now it's 27 for one. It's something. Well, I think I have one here. I think it's like it's just shy of $30 for one tag now, and it's wild the jump. But yeah, it started. I think the first animal I ever killed with my bow was a blacktail, and then I just really started diving into actually deer hunting with it and getting pretty lucky and proficient with it. But see, do I have it here? No, I'll find it eventually. I have this little tag here: bear tag, pig tag. $28.08. So went from $7 for 5 to $28 for 1.
Is it still a problem out there? Like, would you still
In certain areas, yeah, there definitely is. Where I have access to hunt, the Department of Fish and Game came in and killed off like 300 pigs in the adjacent property. And so I haven't seen a pig on the property that I can hunt for almost over 3 years now. It would have been 3 years in January. But they come and go. They'll come into the area and kind of, once they're there, they get demolished by Fish and Game or whatever, and then they come back eventually after that. So I would suspect in the next year or two, you'd probably start seeing pigs back here again. But for a moment where I was hunting, I mean, if you wanted meat, you just go up there and you'd be able to kill a pig. It was just that inevitable. There were so many pigs there that you were able to get in there and get at least one. One day, I think we killed 6 in one morning. So, I mean, it used to be bad. And now I'm wishing it was bad again. But, yeah, the pig hunting's kind of the bread and butter around here. There's a lot of pigs, but it obviously depends on your location where you go. Like Central California, King City, Paso Robles, in that whole area, that's really the main hub for a lot of pig guides in the area. Right. So that area is going to be, it's mostly farmland. So you're going to be getting the pigs that are going to be eating all the stuff in the farms early morning, late evening. So that's when you're going to be hunting them, really.
Yeah. Nuisance animal for the area.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, it's an invasive species. And they just want them gone. And obviously they're trying to bank on as much money as they can. Like a guided pig hunt now is wild. I think it's $1,200 a pig. It used to be like $300 or $400 for an all-inclusive, like lodging, food, and everything for one pig. Now it's $1,200. And some of the places don't even include lodging or food with that.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty bad out here now for especially, well, I mean, if you could afford it, people are going to pay for it. And obviously people do, but it used to be a lot more affordable.
Yeah. That's the world we live in now, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, it definitely is exactly that. Everything's that way.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I just want to take a quick second just to let you know that this podcast is actually brought to you by StandingWolfArchery.com. You know, we specialize in making handmade traditional archery gear such as bow quivers, finger tabs, string silencers, and more. You know, each one of our items is actually made by hand, using materials that only support other American and Canadian small businesses. So if you're looking for rugged, handmade traditional archery gear, visit StandingWolfArchery.com today. You'll find that link in the description below. Now back to our podcast. Yeah, man. Well, kind of like backtracking a little bit, you said you were 12, right, for your first bow hunt?
I think I shot my first deer when I was 13. Well, yeah, right around there.
Right. Could you run it by us, like everything that the whole thought process, what it was like for you? Because that's, for a 13-year-old kid. I mean, for any kid to go out there and bag a deer with a bow, it's a big thing. So, like, what was it like for you? Like,
yeah. So, I'd killed my first deer the year prior with a rifle. And my dad befriended this one guy that had some acreage not far from where we lived. And looking back at it, it wasn't really a hunt. It was more of like, oh, there's some deer, you could shoot them on my property kind of thing. Not anything like what I do now, but I mean, it got my feet wet with learning the bow and everything like that. We had access to this property. It was I think it was just over 10 acres. And the adjacent property had an apricot orchard. And there was a spring on our friend's property. And it would come from the apricot orchard to the spring. And it was basically, we're just sitting there. It was a 30, I think the furthest shot was 35 yards. Closest was like 25, 22 yards. So it was relatively close range. And at the time, I was shooting an old PSC The Beast, and like the old school sight on it. with in the prong, the little metal prong fork ones and little aluminum arrows. And I was shooting every day. And just a little forked horn came in. My dad's like, "You want to shoot that thing?" I was like, "I would love to shoot that thing."
That's awesome.
And got luck. I mean, I had some wild buck fever. I'm surprised I didn't shoot way over his back, but made a decent shot. It was high lung. It only ran maybe 60 yards and piled up, but yeah, just having that experience and kind of getting the edge off of it was super awesome, being able to do that. And that was another place that we were pretty lucky to have. That was something that, like, you're pretty fortunate to have, as well as there's so many deer in that area because nobody else was hunting them.
Yeah.
So you were able to get in there and kind of pick and choose and stuff. But a lot of the deer around here in this area, like a big forked horn is what you're going to expect to get. So that was, I did that for the first couple years, just because it was ease of access and having that meat and stuff in the fridge.
Yep.
And then did the place I hunt now, it was my old baseball coach, and I got in there because of the pigs. Actually, they had pig problem coming in, messing up all their garden. And so he's like, "Yeah, come up and kill as many pigs as you like." And then it progressively got into, you can hunt whatever, as long as it's legal to hunt it, you're able to come up here and hunt it. So
awesome.
I got real fortunate with that one. So that's where I ended up killing that big boy over there in the corner, Neo, at that property. So shot a bunch of pigs off that property. Deer, back in the day, you can't hunt bobcats here anymore, but took a couple bobcats off there like a long time ago. I mean, I haven't seen a bobcat up there in years, but I think it was 2 years ago they stopped they banned the hunting, 2 or 3 years ago now. But yeah, it's a target rich environment up there. And yeah, it's just from there. And then my buddy Matt got me into doing more of the public land stuff and showing me some of the stuff there. And now it's like half private, half public, and bounce around and do all that stuff now.
Well, that's really cool. You still have access to all that private land, though. I mean, that's, depending on the location with public, you could have a lot of competition or, just the wrong spot. But having private usually gives you a far more advantage with just, you have the intimate knowledge of the landowner who knows all the hot spots.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He doesn't hunt or anything like that too. So it's kind of nice to be able to go up there, and I give him meat and whatnot, just kind of thank him for allowing me to hunt there. And it's that spot's pretty beneficial, especially since the nearest public land that's worth its weight is about 3 hours away. So it's a little bit of a trek. But having that, I mean, it's only from my work. I could leave work and get there in about a little under an hour to where I can hunt and actually have a chance of getting something decent. So I'm pretty fortunate with that. Yeah,
for sure.
Back in the day, I mean, a few years ago, I was living right down the street. So it was like, I could be like, all right, I'm just going to go up the hill real quick and bang out a little walk. There's a fire road that goes to the property. I would just still hunt the fire road and see what I saw, and nothing. And then I'd bang out of there. But
cool. It's
nice to be able to do just like an afternoon quick, just run and gun kind of hunt. And I'm super, super lucky to be able to have that.
Well, I would definitely say so, man. Shit. With what season you guys got coming up? Are you guys in Turkey right now?
Turkey starts the 30th. So what's that, 12 days from now?
Yeah, it's creeping in.
Yeah, so turkey starts. Pig season's all year round. And then deer season here, so they're A zone, which is the largest zone in California, and it goes it's huge. It goes so there's I-5 is the main highway, and it basically cuts California in half. And so it goes from I-5 to the coast, and then from like Clear Lake area, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of San Francisco, all the way down to Santa Barbara in Southern California. That whole area is one zone.
Right.
And that season starts for archery the second Saturday in July every year.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's one of the earliest seasons, if not the earliest season in the nation to hunt.
Yeah, that's midsummer. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the only downside is it is hotter than Satan's tank. It is so hot. Like typically, last year was good. Actually, last year I think it was only 80, but I mean, typically it's 110.
That's insane.
One year was 114. I mean, it's ripping. So if you're lucky enough to kill something, you have to get on it immediately before the meat spoils. I mean, the meat's going to spoil so quick.
Like, what do you do for like a pack? Yeah, you basically go on like no t-shirt, like in shorts, and just bug it out like in underwear almost. Man, that's crazy, dude.
Wool everything, damn near wool everything. Wool boxers, wool socks, wool shirt. I was doing the First Light wool pants, but they're not super durable. And I'm kind of a thick guy, so like any sort of like movement, it was just super tight, and I've ripped a bunch of them. So I'll go to like a super thin, lightweight pant, and then wool mostly everything, or a sun shirt, just something super light, and then have a boatload of water on you.
Okay,
and you just got to keep water on you, and then get the meat. Like recently I started last like several years, I've been just doing the gutless method when I process it, just to get it out as quick as possible. But if it's really hot, I'll actually just open it up, get the guts out of it, start getting it cooled down a little bit as best as possible. But
nice.
I always quarter it out and let the meat try to cool down as best as possible, and then pack it up, throw in my pack. And then I will always keep during season, I always have a 110 quart cooler in my truck with ice, because I have 3 kids. So I always keep it with water and stuff like that. So having that is awesome, just to throw the meat in there, start cooling it down as best as possible. But
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it's I mean, a couple hours, you can't find your animal, it's turning quick. So you got to be on top of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. With I guess turkey season coming up for you guys, what's like, because you're posting a lot of videos on Instagram too, like what's your preseason like for like your training regimen? Like what do you spend your most time doing, prepping? Like what's your setup like? Like just run by like everything you do in preseason, and what's your gear like when you're bringing it up?
So for turkey, I'm just sticking to what I've been doing for exercising, just standard weights. And recently I took up running and jogging, which is hysterically horrible. But I'm getting better at that, just kind of keep my cardio up. For deer, I'll start doing like ruck walks, and kind of just dealing with that, because most of the deer hunting, we do like weekend warrior stuff up in public land up north, a lot of hiking and stuff, and hiking into a spot and camping out. So I just try to wean myself back into that. But for like turkey, I'm not really, I just keep on doing what I'm doing. It's not a lot of strenuous stuff that I'm going to be facing when I'm turkey hunting. And for deer, it's mostly I start doing like the heavy rucks. I'll do, every other day I'll do like 50-pound ruck walks for 4 miles. And then I'll throw in once a week, an 80-pound ruck and for 4 miles.
Nice.
And then just keep on with my weights, mace, kettlebell, and I'll do box up, step ups and stuff on the box, and get my legs working. A lot of lower body core stuff. And other than that, just staying super active. I mean, my kids help me with that, just run and chase them around. But as for my setups, this year I'm going to be, so last year I picked up, actually I've always wanted to dive into the traditional archery. And so last year I picked up a stalker stick bow coyote recurve. And I was shooting that for a few months. I ended up shooting a turkey with it last year. And then my my buddy Mark, he's part of Bowhunter Bows, and picked up a longbow from him. And I started shooting that. I actually it was a little bit smoother for me. It's a longer bow, and it was just a little bit better for me.
Right.
And I ended up selling that stalker to my buddy Matt, my hunting buddy, and been shooting the Bowhunter. It's the Bowhunter Hunter longbow. And so last year during deer season, I started using the longbow. I missed 2 deer with it and decided I was going to hang it up because I was so infuriated with it, and picked up my compound, stopped my deer with my compound. But this year I'm pretty devoted. I'm going to end up sticking with it for at least like a month or 2, because season goes from July to end of September. So I'm going to be sticking with the trad equipment for a while. And other than that, just standard. I work for Annihilator broadhead, so I use Annihilators on everything. I actually picked up, I don't know if you've shot any of those new Phoenix vanes.
I was going to ask you, man. I've seen them on everyone's setups now. I'm just so curious to know how they go.
Yeah, they work pretty well. Originally I was using just the standard trad vanes.
Yep.
And they're super pliable, and I tuned everything for that. And then when I got the Phoenix vanes, I just had to bump up the knock set just a little bit. Okay. Other than that, they fly great. They're noticeably different in stiffness, and they hold their form really well. The original trad vanes would get the ripple in the veins and stuff like that, and they kind of just deformed a little bit. But these ones hold their shape a lot better. So I put those on. Say that again, sorry.
I was going to ask if they're quiet, because I think I saw someone saying that there's a slight whistle or a slight sound or something like that. Or?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit, maybe. My hearing's shot, so I'm not very good. I'm not a good judge of that. But I mean, possibly. I did some videos like with the camera next to the target, and you can kind of hear something a little bit. But I did it I heard that with the original trad vanes too, so I don't think it's much of a difference in noise between the two.
Right.
But I have actually never shot feathers, so I don't know if it's louder than feathers or anything like that. So
no, I'm looking forward to trying them myself. I've seen a lot of people like yourself shooting them, and I've heard great things. So I'm really curious of how they fly too.
Yeah, no, I'm a novice when it comes to any traditional stuff. And if it makes it easier for me, I'll be happy to use it. So yeah, I put them on 3 weeks ago, and I've had no issues with them. I've shot them out to 40 yards and they seem to be flying great. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Shout out to AAE for sure. Definitely want to get them on a setup and give them a try.
Yeah, they're so much easier to fletch up too. They got a larger foot on them, and you don't have to do any of that primer pin on it.
Okay,
it's so amazing. I was like, with the original trad vanes, the foot on it was so damn small, right, and it was hard for them to adhere. It took forever to vane or fletch them up. But this one's just as quick as you would do any sort of compound bow. Super quick.
Nice. Yeah, I want to try them. Definitely want to try them.
The AA makes great stuff. I use I have the hybrid 26s on my compound bow right now, actually. So I like that setup.
Nice. Well, you're gonna have to try feathers at some point, and then you truly know the difference.
Yeah, that's. I was talking to Mark, the guy that he's co-owner of Bowhunter, and he fletches up a bunch of feathers. I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna have to buy a dozen from you, because they're making arrows too. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy a dozen arrows from you. You can fletch up the feathers for me, because I'll mess it up. My OCD will freak out. So I'll have someone that knows what to do it, and then just run them. So I'll probably end up doing that. Benefits of having deer season in summer is that it almost never rains, so I don't have to worry about the feathers getting messed up too badly.
Yeah, I think even then, like where I'm at, it's pretty moist sometimes. So they're usually good to go in most conditions.
Yeah. Do you do any of that waterproofing or the dust or whatever on it or anything?
Don't do anything like that. Just they're fairly inexpensive anyways too. So if I screw them up, It's not a big deal to me, but I don't play around with any of that kind of stuff. It's just glue them on and just let it rip.
There you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Kind of going back to the fitness aspect of preseason, and what I was curious about, because I saw a post of yours and you were talking about like a pig hunt, and I thought it was really interesting that you brought it up too, because in the post you're mentioning that your packet was horrible.
Seems like I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It caught my attention. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. It's like, how was that like the turning point where you realized like you got to take like the fitness aspect more seriously? And so I think that's really underlooked for a lot of people. Most people's just on their shooting game, and not too many people really put too much thought into actual physical conditioning as being a part of the overall package of the hunt, right? As your toolkit. Like,
that's one of the most important tools in the toolkit is you yourself and being able to get to where you need to be and get out of there. There's a lot of other variables to my fitness and health, but that one was one that kind of made me realize that I was way out of shape. It was just a big pig. It was like 350 pounds. And it died in some real thick scrub oak. And I was trying to drag it out, and I just couldn't even drag it out, just dead weight trying to get it through that stuff. So I ended up quartering it out. And I had to make a couple trips, and it made me realize the equipment I had was not good. And I mean, I got by with it. It worked in the past, but there's definitely at the time better equipment. And then obviously now it's like leaps and bounds of what it was then. But I didn't even have a frame pack. I was more of I don't know if you remember the company. It was Crooked Horn Outfitters. They made like a hip, like a fanny pack, and it looked like a hydration bladder on the top that came over as a backpack. It was just like super lightweight, almost like a final approach bag that you'd use.
Right.
And I was using that for everything. And when I realized, I was like, I couldn't even fit a leg in it or anything. So I had to throw stuff over my shoulders. I'm walking out, and it wasn't very far of a walk, but at the time I was just so out of shape. I was borderline morbidly obese, and just all the stuff I had just was not good. I had bad boots, didn't fit me well. And it just came down to like, man, that could have been so much easier if I had stuff that actually fit me, and I had a frame pack, and I was just actually more active than I was at that time, to where I can actually not want to die after it. That was a rough one. I'm pretty sure I remember which one you were talking about. That was about a year or two prior to me actually starting my weight loss journey after that. But that was a rough one. That was really rough. And that was early morning, shot a pig. And it was actually my son's birthday. We had to go to his birthday party later on the day. So I was like rushing around. And so I'm like big heavy guy running around trying to get this pig going. And then finally got the pig to my truck, and then brought it home and didn't have time to process it. So I hung it in my shower to just stay cold with the AC unit in the bathroom, just trying to cool it down. It was a circus. I made it work, but at the time, it was like, now looking back, like, that was stupid. Just stupid.
Of all the days too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I was married at the time, so we called it the birthday pig. And it was kind of a joke because my wife at the time just knew. It's like I was way out of my element. It was like I need to lose weight, and where it died was just a hellhole. And so it was just like the perfect storm of just knowing that I needed to actually now lose weight and deal with that stuff. But after that, I started being more active. I never got a frame pack until years after that, actually. But just made me realize that I need to step up my game a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I totally hear you, man. This is, I mean, even just being inactive, excuse me, over the winter. Yeah, for myself, I mean, I have 3 kids too, but just doesn't take long to feel the roots set in, right?
Yeah, it's pretty insane how like that. Even like a week or two, if you take something off a week or two and you try to go back to where you are or were prior, you're just like, oh man, this really deteriorates real quick. So you need to stay on top of it just a little bit to get that. But yeah, I'm not the person I was then. I feel a lot better now. I feel better than I did in high school, actually. But that was definitely an eye-opening moment for sure.
Well, yeah, definitely an interesting post, and it caught my eye, and I was like, huh, it's, I'm sure there was something to be taken from it for yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then since then, I've been, say that again. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, when you take out the gear of the equation and stuff, because you're right, the gear makes a big difference too. I mean, there's no question.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, if you're able to carry weight in a backpack and have it comfortably on your back and get that out that way, it's awesome. You'd make less trips. And then one thing that's also overlooked is footwear, and then having something that fits well, that's not too heavy, not like clumsy or anything. It's just like there's so many variables there that could have been so much better had I had better equipment, for sure. And then obviously, as well as my health being, if I was a lot healthier, that would have been less of a factor with the equipment. But at the time, I was like, man, it's like bad equipment, bad health. It was just a bad experience all in all, but got a lot of meat out of it. And it's just a funny story now afterwards.
Well, I'd love to hear more about, because you post a lot about different games. You got a lot of stuff on your Instagram I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of stories.
Yeah.
What would you say, maybe if you want to go into detail of some of the more memorable ones, like for instance, a memorable turkey hunt or pig hunt or, blacktail, whatever it is that comes to your mind, maybe dive into some of the stories that really stand out over time.
Well, the last pig I shot actually was a fun one. I have it on my highlights on my page. I get to the spot that I have access to hunt, and I hike the entire property. Don't see anything, and so I'm just sitting there on the hillside. And at the time, the sun's actually now starting to pop up, and just sitting there enjoying the sun, listening to the birds, just enjoying nature. And all of a sudden, this pig pops up around the hillside, feeding down this canyon in front of me. And between me and the pig, there's literally nothing. It's just maybe shin high grass. And so I was like, well, I either shoot from here or let this pig go.
Yeah.
And so I ranged it. It was 71 yards. And I was like, I know I can make that shot. I've made it plenty of times to target practicing and stuff. And I was like, all right. So I set up, take a shot, and I ended up hitting it. It was kind of like quartered two, and I hit it right behind its head and its neck, and I saw only the fletching sticking out of it. And it whips around and goes down the canyon, and the canyon ends up bending around, and it's all just scrub oak back there. I was like, this is not going to be fun if it dies in there. And so I give it a few minutes and I go down there. I find the fletching part of my arrow, can't find the rest of my arrow. I was like, okay, well, I'm shooting 30-inch draw. So there's 26 inches of arrow in that pig. It has to be dead. And I ended up spending 3 hours looking for that thing and couldn't find it, because where I hit it up high, it would have taken all the blood to get up to that spot. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, it went in and it didn't get a second hole. So I have to wait for all the blood to come up to the top to drop out. Yep. And the pigs have really long hair. It's similar to bear, where it'll mop up the blood. And so I followed every trail that I could on that hillside. And I spent a little over 3 hours looking for that thing. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to check one more time. And I dropped down one more trail that I'd been on already twice, but I was just like fine tooth combing, looking for footprints or anything like that. And I noticed one little drop of blood. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, he went down this. I'm looking around. And what happened was it actually had died. Essentially, I was standing like 4 feet from it at that time. And it died and rolled into the scrub oak downhill. And the scrub oak came up and over it again. It was covering it. All I saw was its hoof sticking out. And oh man, and it was starting to get hot. At that time, it was almost noon. And it was, I don't know, high 70s at the time. So it's like, all right, well, it's been 3 hours. I need to start processing this. And in the time that I was looking for, I ended up finding like 3 really nice deadheads off some deer from mountain lion kills. And it was just a cool experience to look around, check out kind of the area that I haven't really checked out too much. And it eventually found the pig and got it out of there and hiked it out. But that one was one of those ones that's just perseverance. You got to stick with it, and it'll always work out, or 90% of the time it'll work out if you just stick with it and figure it out. For deer, I think it would be the Neo guy. I took 6 years. It took 6 years to shoot that buck. When I first saw him, he was still a really good buck. He was already a 2x3 and wider than most of the bucks in the area. And just I can never get close to him. There's a bunch of times I'd get like 120 yards, and then he'd know someone was up, and he's just out of there. And then one year, I shot at him 5 or 6 times, and every time missed. And it was just like dumb luck where I knew he was in this bachelor herd, and they were coming down this trail, and I ranged the first buck, and I think it was like 40 or 45 yards or something like that down this trail. He comes out, another one comes out, and then the buck that I was wanting to go for Neo, he comes out, but what I don't realize is he's on the next trail behind them. So he's like another like 15 yards past and walking. And so I had 40, 45 in my head. I was like, okay, I'm just going to hold for 40, 45. And what realistically is at like 60.
Right.
Shot right under him there. And then another time he was coming down another trail, and I had him dead to rights. And I shot like an inch over his back at 60. And then there was a few other times where I was like high or low, just high or low. And then the last one, and this is why I called him Neo, is I had him right at last light, perfectly broadside, and he's just sitting there. He knows I'm there, but he's like, I'm too far. I'm not going to have to worry about the guy. So I'm ranging him. All right. I think it was 62 yards. And get everything ready. Come to full draw, release the arrow, and I was using illuminated nocks at the time. So I'm watching this fly, and I'm like, oh, he is dead. And mid-flight, he turns his head and gets his rear hoof and starts scratching his head, and it hits the antlers that are protecting his vitals.
That's
the antlers come like this. I'm like, okay, it's just a sign. This buck, I'm not going to kill this buck. And so I just gave up even trying to get that guy. I was like, next legal buck I see, I'm going to shoot. And then that was 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I saw him a bunch of times, but never anywhere that I can get anywhere near him. A lot of the times he was actually on the neighboring property that I couldn't hunt.
Right.
And so I'd see him over there often. And then this year, I actually had my longbow with me, and I jumped him up at 30 yards, and the grass was like shoulder high. He jumped up and just kept running. I was like, oh, it just got me going. And so he'd always travel this one corridor. I always watched him travel this one corridor, and I was always trying to figure out how the best way would be to get to him. And so I was like, one day I'm just going to sit there all day. I'm going to get there before sunrise and I'm going to sit there till after sunset and I'm going to hope that'll work. So I did that one time last year and he never showed up. His buddy did, the guy he was with, and buddy spotted me and I was like, all right, I'll shoot this one. So I ended up shooting that one. That was 2 years ago when I did that. Last year, same thing, same corridor, and it was after work, and I was like, I got 4 hours. I'm going to sit right there, and hopefully he walks by. And so starting to get dark, and I had about 45 minutes to an hour to get back to my truck. And so I was like, I'm going to still hunt my way back. And so start still hunting on my way back, and I realized I had forgotten my water bottle up where I was sitting. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go back because I wasn't going to be able to get back there for another 6 to 7 days. So I'm just going to go back and grab it and then start doing my still hunt. As I'm walking back, it's kind of in between, like a gully in between two ridges. And I popped up over this ridge, just kind of looked down in this field, and there was 2 bucks there. And I pull up my binoculars, and there he was sitting there. At the time, I didn't know how far he was, but he was pretty damn far. And so luckily enough, there was this boulder that I was able to stand up on because the grass is about like mid-chest height. I'm ranging him. I don't get a good range. I range the buck that's next to him. The buck was like 87 yards. And so I'm sitting there ranging, and he kind of like steps out in this little bit of clearing in the grass, and I've ranged him. It feels like forever, but it was like 97, 95, 92, 98, 95, 93, 95. So 95 was like the mid number. Like, I'm going to just dial it to 95, wait till he's broadside and send it. Dial 95. There's no winds, like perfect scenario. And he sits there and he moves and he's slightly quartered to, but enough to where I have a good solid base for where that arrow is going to land. Sit there, pull, get the thing to pull, shoot. And it feels, I had almost enough time to pull my binoculars to see if I could hit the thing. Oh, man. And you could hear when the broadhead hits an animal, you could hear that like paper ripping, slashing of just flesh. And I was like, all right, well, I knew I hit him. But the second I hit him, he whipped around and then dropped off the backside of this ridge. So I couldn't get like a good, clear view of where I had hit him. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to give him a little bit of time. I still have like 45 minutes left of light. I'm going to go get my water, give him a little bit, and then I'm going to go follow him. So I get my water, slowly start walking over to where I thought I'd hit him. I'm like looking back, trying to figure out where I was, and get to the area. I'm looking around. I find a little bit of blood. All right. So start following the blood, and the blood's starting to get like pretty decent, but it's starting to get pretty like far from where I had hit it. And I'm sitting there like, fuck, this is good blood. But I mean, I'm already 70, 80 yards from where I hit him.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there and so I'm just going to keep following the blood. It's like, there's only a limited amount of blood in that animal. He's going to bleed out eventually. I kept going. It was almost I think it was just over 200 yards from that. And I was just crawling. There's some spots I had to crawl on my hands and knees to find a drop. And you can see where he'd stop and there'd be a big old puddle and then keep going. And he ended up coming out of this field, dropping down the backside of that ridge, and then back up the other side. He started going uphill, which scared me. And then once he got in the uphill like side, he went into some real thick scrub oak. And going through the scrub oak, it's all low tunnels and stuff. So I'm crawling through the tunnels, and then it opened up, and I'm like, all right, so I see blood. And at that time, you can see the oaks were dropping their leaves over the years. And back there, the wind doesn't move it around. So it's piled up. So you could see where he was stepping. And so I was following that, and I came around the tree, and he was piled up right there. And at that time, by the time I actually got to him, it's pitch black outside. I'm just using my headlamp. And it was one of those moments like, holy crap, this is big deer. And just body was big. Antlers were twice as like wide as any of the other bucks I've seen up there. And my buddy Matt that I've been hunting with forever, I immediately called him. I didn't even touch the buck. I called him and said, hey, dude, I think I shot Neo. You want to come down and take a look at him? And it was like a 30, 45-minute drive from him. He was like, yeah, I'll be right there. So I sat there and just sat there next to the buck, thanked him, and just sat there until Matt got there. And we just finally put our hand, because he experienced the same thing with me. Just he's seen it. He heard all the problems I had with it and everything. So we got to experience that together. And he helped him with the pack out. That was probably one of the most memorable. It was definitely the most memorable deer hunt that I've ever been on. It was absolutely amazing. And fortunate enough that my buddy later on in the season shot a deer like a week or two after that, still early season hide. So I was able to use his hide, because the hide that was on this buck was basically just skin from it being the summer hide was starting to shed, and it was nasty.
Right.
So my buddy, he wanted a Euro mount on his buck. So I was like, dude, I'll take your hide if I can. He's like, yeah. So he gave me the hide, my buddy TJ, and used that hide off his buck for mine. And just picked that up the other weekend. We got pretty fortunate, got that done. And that was definitely the most memorable deer hunt. And then I've been fortunate enough to go. My dad got drawn on a California desert bighorn. In 2020, I think it's 2020 or 2021, right in the heart of that fun pandemic. They did this. So they shut down all the hunting dinners. And the hunting dinners is where they end up auctioning off or raffling off all those hunts. And so that year they called it a fundraiser tag. And what that did is anybody can buy into it. And it was like $7.50 entry. And you can buy as many as you want. And my dad dropped, I think he bought 10, so $75 for the entries into it, and he got drawn for it.
That's awesome.
Which is wild, because like this year, I think that one of the tags went for $350,000. Something. It's just wild, just absolutely wild. And so, yeah, a lot of those tags go for upwards of like between 2, 3. I think the Colorado one this year, the Colorado like bighorn, went for 450.
Whoa.
It's big money. And we went down there and we decided that we were just going to do it ourselves. We were going to do it with no guide or anything. Where he got the tag was the Marble Clipper Mountains. So it's in the Mojave Desert, and it's just south of Death Valley. And that tag actually allowed us to hunt a full month prior to anybody else. So we had the whole mountain range to ourselves for a full month.
That's incredible.
That was probably my most memorable of all hunts. We went down there to scout a few times. The first time we went, we didn't see anything. And it was a new animal, new area. It's like trying to pick a needle out of a haystack, and they blend in way too well on that. It's like Mars out there. It's wild. And then the next time we went down, we started finding some other. We found a couple rams, and it was mostly ewes. And then the cool thing about that style hunt is, for the most part, it's a once in a lifetime hunt. And so people will come out of the woodworks to want to help you. Guides won't, but the people that have already done that hunt, they're like, hey, dude, I have a bunch of waypoints that we've seen a bunch of rams at. Check this area out. So we had a bunch of people, and one guy that really helped us, he got the hunt. He did the hunt year prior. Robbie, he lives up in north of me here. And he sent me like probably 80 waypoints on the same mountain just to like check out certain areas that he had seen them the year prior.
Nice.
And so we were able to access or utilize that as a tool, and we kind of just went around, checked it out. And then opening day was, I want to say it was November 6th. And we got down there the day prior, and it was my dad, myself, my buddy Matt that I hunt with. And he brought his cousin and one of our mutual buddies down. And so we went out there and we decided the first day we're just going to find something that we can get our eyes on, take pictures, and like see if my dad wants it. If we see a monster, we're going to bring him over and have him try to shoot, because he wasn't looking for any record book. He wanted just someone with some full curls, a respectable ram. He wasn't trying to go record book with it or anything. He just wanted the full experience. And we spent the first day, I think the first day I put on 17 miles walking around that mountainside, just trying to find something. And I found a couple smaller rams and a boatload of ewes. And then my buddy Matt and his cousin found a pretty good ram. And it was later on in the day, and my dad's getting old, so he was like already just burnt out. So he started hiking back to camp, and we weren't able to get that. There's a miscommunication. We weren't able to get on that ram. So we all went back to camp, and we decided that we were going to go back up to that area where that one ram was and try to get him the next morning. Because my dad looked at the photos. He decided that this one thing is the one ram that he would actually really enjoy taking a closer look and probably shoot. And so we get up there the next morning, and I end up hiking a little bit further over and up onto this one ridge to check out the backside, and they stay down. It was this larger bowl basin where they had seen it the night prior. And I went off to the south end to check on the backside at the other basin. I get up there and immediately find that ram. And I was like, well, now they have to come up. It was almost 1,000 foot. It was like 950 foot elevation from where they are to get there. So you guys need to get up here as quick as possible, because this thing's chasing ewes around, and it's a good looking ram. And actually, I posted a couple videos of it up on my stories a while back. And unfortunately, what happened was he ended up started chasing the ewes, went over the next ridge by the time my dad and everybody got up there. So we kind of circled the hillside and tried to get over on the backside. Found 2 of the 3 ewes he was chasing, but we never found him or the other ewe. And unfortunately, just wasn't able to connect with that guy. Right. And that was the second day. And so the third day, we decided that we were going to get to that backside would be a nightmare. There's no roads that get you anywhere near, and to hike back up and over there, my dad just wasn't able to do it. He was 62 at the time, or 63 at the time.
Right.
And so we decided you're able to hunt. Those were the I want to say that was the Clipper Mountains, and then the Marbles. I might be getting this wrong, but it's Marbles and the Clippers. And one of them is a lower density of sheep, but larger sheep. And the other one's a higher density with a lower scoreable ram. So like, we'll go to the one that's has been known to have more rams.
Right.
But we decided to do that. That was Monday morning. Went to that one, and from scouting the couple weeks prior, I'd already seen some good rams in that area. And so we went to the same area that I'd seen those rams. And the nice thing about that is you could almost drive right up to it. It was maybe a 800-yard walk up a road to get to it. They have the road sectioned off because there's cell towers up there, and they need access to the cell towers. So we get up there, I'm glassing, end up finding a good ram. And they were just so super, super skittish. They just didn't let us get anywhere near them. I think the closest we ended up getting close to them was 400 yards, maybe. And they were constantly moving. They weren't having us there. And so I was like, well, this little ridge only goes so far, and then it drops straight into the desert. And they're either going to stay in the mountains or they have to run like 4 miles to the next mountain,
right,
through the desert. I was talking to my dad, like, if you want to do it, we can just slowly hunt through it and try to get to see, hopefully maybe they'll stop in the desert there and you can get a good clean shot at them, or they'll stay in the rocks and hopefully something happens. And so we start making our way, and we're just inch by inch making it out there, and we're getting close to the end. And my dad's like, is that a truck out there in the desert? Like, it looked like someone was doing the Baja 1000 out there. And I pull my binoculars, and it's all the sheep running across the desert. It's just a cloud of dust going through. I'm like, well, that's our hunt. We're done for the day.
Yeah.
And so we had to hike back, and it's like 95 degrees. There's no trees or anything. It's like Mars out there. And so we had to stop and like huddle under rocks just to get some shade. And finally got back to the truck. We decided we were just going to kind of keep it low key and relax a little bit. We had lunch, and was like, all right, well, let's eat and relax a little bit. And once it starts cooling down, we'll go over to that mountainside and see if we can pull out the spotter and see him on that ridge or anything. End up getting over there, relocate them, but they're too far away. We can't get to them by the time it'd be just too dark. And we made a game plan to go out there the next day. So that would have been the 4th day. And we ended up hiking basically into the middle of this mountain range and didn't see anything that day. Didn't find them, nothing. They were gone. And so now our spirits are like pretty bad. My dad's just burnt out, and I'm just sitting there. I was like, well, we're just going to have to keep moving and finding something. And so the next day we decided we were going to go around the mountainside to the backside. And I was like, why don't we just sit one of the guzzlers one of these times? It's water. It's the only water in the area. There's like 15 of them, of these guzzlers in this mountain range. And the cool thing is the Army Corps engineers come in and they fill it up with water, and a bunch of different organizations go and help make these guzzlers and whatnot. But super beneficial because there's literally no water out there. And so it's like, we could just sit on the mountainside away from the guzzler and just sit there all day and see if anything comes in. And then so the 5th day, we decided, yeah, well, we could do that. My dad just has to hike up there, and he could sit and relax, and I'll just glass all day. And so we get up there before sunrise. I just get settled in for the long haul, just glass in, and first thing pop is like 4 or 5 ewes come in right at first light. And so it gets me all amped up, super excited. Like, all right, this actually might work. We might actually find something here. And they're there farting around for a while. And then they leave, and a small ram comes in with like 8 or 9 ewes. And they're there for a while. I was watching them for probably an hour, and just enjoying seeing them. This is a new animal that I've never hunted before, watching them just interact with each other and stuff. It's just wild. And so I'm just sitting there, and I end up we have cell service. So I'm just checking my emails and surfing social media, just kind of killing time. And it's just kind of mundane stuff that they're gone, that nothing's been there for a while. And all of a sudden I hear some rocks, and I look down, and there's a ram that literally just popped out of nowhere, and he's right next to the guzzler. I'm like, oh shit. So I looking at it through the binoculars. I'm well, it's a younger ram, but it has everything my dad said he wants. So I took a picture of it, and I sent it to my dad, who's on the backside of the mountain in the shade still. And I sent it to him. I wait a few minutes, and I call him and say, hey, there's a ram over here that if you like what you see in the picture, come over and take a look at him a little bit closer. And so he starts walking over there. I was like, I guess he liked the photo at least. And so he gets set up on the gun, just looking through the scope at it. And it's like, I don't know. He's kind of going back and forth for 5-6 minutes probably. And then the ram turns, and so it's broomed off on one side just slightly, and it's a full curl with the lamb tip on it. It's like a perfect horn all the way around on one side. And he's like, yeah, I want to shoot that. I'm like, oh, all right. So I'm grabbing everything. I'm trying to grab the phone scope, getting all set up. And he's like, can I shoot? I'm like, no, just wait. I'm trying to get everything. It's actually filmed. My buddy made a video of it, of the whole interaction. It's on YouTube. And got it all dialed, and I'm trying to like calm him down. It's like, all right, you know how far it is, where are you going to hold on? My dad's been hunting forever, so he's like, he already knows this, but I'm just trying to get him to be distracted, talk to me so I can get all my stuff set up. And finally get all set up, push record. I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, you're good to go. All right. So he sits there for a little bit, touches one off. And in California, you can't shoot lead at animals. You have to use a copper bullet. And so thing just rips right through it, but it didn't even look like it got hit. And so he's like, oh, did I hit it? I'm like, I don't know. And I'm pulling it around so I get the camera back on it. And it's just sitting there and kind of looks back where it just was. And it literally just falls over. I'm like, we start screaming, just yipping and hollering. And we sat there for a little bit. It's like, man, in 5 days, I put my dad through a little over 50 miles of just hiking in the desert with no shade other than hiding behind rocks and stuff. And it's just like, it was a wild experience. We walk up to them, and the desert bighorn sheep are a lot smaller than you think they are. They're small animals. And just like looking at it, I've never seen one up close. We're both just admiring it. And just took a boatload of pictures, and that was a fun one. And I really hope that one day I'm able to do it. But the odds of getting drawn for that are insane. Like, I don't even know the draw odds. I'd have to look them up. It's something stupid, like 60 years before you get drawn on that. It's wild. And you're lucky if you go.
That's $70.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And the cool thing about that is, with that fundraiser tag, he's still able to apply for it. So if you got drawn, if you applied for the drawing and got drawn, you're not allowed to get drawn again, even if you don't get an animal. So with that fundraiser tag, he's able to apply again because it was that fundraiser tag, and do the hunt again if he ever gets drawn.
Yeah.
So got pretty lucky with everything there. It was amazing. Just the help between people sending waypoints, and my buddy coming down and helping, and just the whole thing was awesome. And we ended up shooting it at just before noon. And I was like, I don't want to sleep in a tent tonight. I'll drive the 8 hours home, right? And like after this, I was like, we'll get it all dialed, we get squared away, and I'll drive the 8 hours. My dad's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, because you have to call. It's not the Department of Fish and Game, but they're like research scientists that are down in that area that study these animals. And you have to call them, and then they come and measure them out. They do that core where they put the little steel stamp inside of it. And so we called them. They're like, well, we can't be there for like 2 or 3 hours. It's like, okay. So we just sat there. We ate. I mean, we brought steaks down. So I cooked up some steaks. We had a couple beers and just hung out. And it's like, all right, let's go meet them. Met up with them, and then just started driving home, just banged it out. And it was cool. It's weird because they don't taste like anything. They literally have, they're eating cactus and like acacia. And you would think it'd be like a weird gamey meat. And I cooked it up like the next day. We cooked up a little bit of the backstrap, and it didn't taste like, it had zero taste. It was the weirdest thing. So, and it's funny because I was talking to my dad's buddy. He had gotten drawn for it years and years ago. And he said the same thing. He's a chef. And he was like, it's the one animal that I've ever had that had zero taste. There's just nothing to it.
That's
So I don't know if it's something that they're eating or what, if it's just that animal, but it was the wildest thing to experience something like that.
That's awesome, man. I mean, just the fact, like you said, the draw, the odds of like just that, but then like you got like the father son aspect too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I got to experience that with my pops, and he shot it, got a bunch of photos. I ended up throwing it. I threw the whole thing in my pack, and I mean, I think we only yielded maybe 30 or 40 pounds out of it.
Wow.
That's how small they are.
That's nuts.
So I just packed the whole thing out, hiked it back, and just like I carried, I think he carried the gun, but I carried everything else. Just like, enjoy this. It's like trying to experience it with him. And it was a cool, absolutely amazing experience. And so one thing is like my dad doesn't really exercise or do anything like that very often. Like he'll walk the dogs and stuff. But when he learned that he got drawn for this, he started doing ruck walks and trying to get active and stuff like that, because he knew he was going to be walking a bunch. And yeah, he killed it. He tore it up. He was keeping up with all of us. And there was a couple of days where it's like, I might kill my dad just by hiking through some of this stuff. And he just kept going.
That's good.
It was impressive. It was one of those things like, fuck, my dad's a badass. You know, like you get that experience, you see him, you're like, all right, he still got it. He still got it. It was an amazing experience. That's definitely probably my favorite hunt. And it's like, I think my buddy he filmed some of it. I filmed some of it and he made a video of it. It's probably a 45-minute video he has on YouTube, the whole experience. It's an amazing experience to go do that. It was fun.
Well, I mean, from being like a dad yourself, like what's your feelings and like your thoughts on like the importance of like including your children and like getting them involved in that type of an upbringing?
I think it's super valuable. From a young age, I always told them what we were eating. I never said beef. I said cow. I'd chicken, or I'd say deer, or I would say the animal of what we were eating. I'd explain it to them. When I'd go hunting, I'd bring it back. I'd butcher it in front of them. They're always very intrigued by that and seeing so that kind of starts there, kind of getting them used to realizing that something has to die for them to eat.
Right.
And then, once they get to an age where they're relatively self-reliant, I think it's pretty easy to get them into the woods that way. I mean, you can get them fishing, doing little stuff like weekend trips, fishing, stuff like that, get them used to that whole thing. But it wasn't until this year that last season, I brought my son in a backpacking hunt. We hiked in about 5 miles, lived out of our backpacks, camped, filtered water out of the creek and stuff like that. And there's nothing you can do or say or show that will get you ready for that. You just got to do it. Yeah. And so I made sure that he had everything that he needed. A good backpack, decent shoes. I went out and bought him all new camo, make sure he was comfortable. Because when we went, it was during rifle season. And when we hiked in, the day we hiked in, it was 90, and the next day it was supposed to be like 105. And so I was like, all right, well, we just need to be light. And I warned him, I was like, it's going to be hot, it's going to be miserable, but you're going to experience what we do. Some days we don't get anything. Some days we're lucky enough to. And that hunt, we didn't get anything, but we saw a boatload of deer, all does, but just got to experience living out of a tent, boiling water from the creek, eating that, and like just the camaraderie of just sitting down after a long day and just eating freeze-dried meals. And like you're sweating so bad. We went and skinny dipped in the creek and stuff, just like doing just guy stuff in the middle of the woods. And so it's one of those things like he still brings up today. He's like, I want to go do that again. I'm like, I vividly remember you wishing that we were home halfway through the hike back to the truck. And he's just like, oh, this is miserable. I don't want to do this again. Now it's like everything that I know. I mean, you probably have had the same experiences where you go through a hunt or anything really, and you're just like, that sucked. I don't want to do that in any foreseeable future. And then a week goes by and it kind of like all the crappy things go away. And you remember all the good experiences. You're like, no, I'm going to do that again.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best part of it all. I think, everyone's got to go through shit because it's shit's first of all worth it, but that's where the memories are.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't really get because you have to have that contrast, right? You got to go through the shit to have the good memory.
Yeah. And it's funny that it worked out the way it did because we did that hunt in the end of August. And the last day of season for the zone is the third Sunday in September. And so schedules and everything like that, we weren't able to get out till the last day of season. And so I was like, all right, dude, we're going to give it one last hurrah. We're going to go up there. And around here, the last week or so of season is right when the rut is starting to kick off. Like it's starting to warm up. And then season ends, and that's when the rut is. It sucks. But it's always like the last week of season's really, really good. The bucks are chasing does. You could actually do like estrus bleats and call them in a little bit. Rattling works from time to time. But it's always where you'll see a vast majority of the bucks during that time. And so I was like, all right, well, he had a bow. And the one thing I messed up was if we see a buck, I want to be as comfortable as possible. He was shot in the back a bunch. I know he shoots the bow very well. I had him shoot the day prior. I had him shoot out to 60 with his bow. He was all within respectable shooting. And so the next morning, I'm like, know what? I don't want him to wear a backpack because I don't want him to have to worry about the backpack getting in the way or anything like that. So I'm going to carry my backpack. And if he gets a buck, I'll carry it out. No problems. And so we're hiking up at that spot that I have access to. And it's like 5 minutes before legal light. And it's still dark. It's at legal light. You're having troubles to see your pin. And so walking up, I had my red headlamp on and we're walking. I'm looking through the trees and I see eyes looking at me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, there's some deer right there. And we kind of skirt off and we walk around this tree and I'm sitting there and I'm looking. I had the red light on and I could tell it's a buck. I'm like looking, I pull my binos and I can tell it's solid mass and it's got at least a fork on one side, which makes it legal here. I'm like, all right, that thing's got to sit for another like 5 minutes and then we can shoot it. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, legal light, you got to wait. And you can't even see the pins. Like, I know you can't see the pins. Yeah. There's just no way. There's no way you're going to be able to see it. Legal light comes. I'm like, can you see your pins? He's like, nope. I'm like, all right, we still got to wait. And it's just sitting there. It's bedded down. And we're not moving. We're just whispering back and forth. And then I'm like, all right, tell me when you can see your pins. And he's just sitting there looking at it. He's like, all right, I see my pins. I'm like, okay. So I range it 18 yards from us, bedded down the hill from us. And I was like, draw back, nose on the string, look through the peep, settle the pin, shoot. So he draws back and no more than like a second goes by. Arrow releases, shoots like 6 foot over the back of the buck. And I'm like, fuck. I look at him. It's like, it's all right. The buck got up and it wasn't super spooked. It went around this tree and stopped. And so I come around the tree with my oldest boy's Gavin. I grab him. I'm bringing him around the tree. I noticed that there was a doe with him, so she had to have been hot, and he didn't want to leave her.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there again. I'm like, all right, you see the buck down there? It's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, he's 30 yards now. So, and he's shooting a single pin, like the double stack spot hog. So it's like a single pin. Dial this thing to 30. I'm like, do you know what you did wrong last time? He's like, I don't think I looked through the peep. I was like, that could definitely do it. So draw back and make sure you go through everything. Anchor, nose on the string, look through the peep, settle the pin, and just relax. You got all the time in the world. He's there. He's spooked, but he's not like, he knew something was up. There's something weird, but he didn't give off that vibe like he was going to get out of there quickly. And so he's sitting there, releases the arrow, and he just, boom, drills it. And I'm sitting there focusing on him, trying to like make sure he's getting the shot execution good. And I heard the shot hit him, and I didn't have the binoculars on the deer, but I could tell it was a decent shot. It didn't sound like bone or anything, and it didn't sound like that hollow gut. It sounded like a good like upper diaphragm lung shot. And sitting there, I'm looking at him. He's all excited, and like the whole thing, I see the buck go a little bit, and then he vanishes. And I was like, so, all right, we're gonna wait a little bit. Not sure where you hit him. It sounded good, but we're gonna wait a little bit. And so we're just like going over. And it's like, so you didn't look through the peep that time. You see how like we're going over like what he messed up on and how he corrected it that time. Just going over that experience. And so 45 minutes goes by. And we walk down to where the buck was standing. I'm looking around, and I don't see any blood. And I'm like, ugh, that's not good. Kind of looking, I was like, all right, bud, you're going to sit right here, and I'm going to go down where I thought I saw him go. And I'm going to try to find some blood. And once I find blood, you're going to come up to me, and I'm going to show you how to track blood and look. It was under a bunch of, they're buckeye trees, but I grew up, the guy that I knew growing up always called them deer dick trees. They just look like big white dongs, but the bucks love them. They have these big, I don't even know what they are, a fruit of some sort they eat off of them. And so I get to a spot, and I'm looking, and I find a little drop of blood, and I can see it's all the leaves on the ground are kicked up again. I'm looking, and I turn, and the buck had gone around this dead tree and was belly up down the hill from like probably 30 yards from where he had been shot. And so I just knew, I was like, I need to film this. So I grabbed the camera, like my phone, start filming, and I start walking up to my son. I was like, all right, bud, I found some blood. I found the tracks. We're going to start following the tracks. I want you to follow them. And at the time, he didn't know the deer was dead. I knew, and like I didn't tell him or anything. So I'm filming it, and he's like looking. He's like, "All right, I see a track there, right there." And I'm like, "So what happened now? What do you think?" And he's like, "I don't know. It kind of looks like he goes." I was like, "Yeah, I think he went down the hillside like that. I think he went down this way." And I'm trying to like get him to look.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Which way?" I'm like, "Down like over here." And he looks up, and he's like. He like couldn't even say anything. He's just like, oh, it's like it happened. And so I was like, we give him a big old hug, and it's like, oh man, it's just like one of those moments. I start crying like a little girl, and it was just one of those moments. It's awesome. It's like, all right, but it's like, although he is belly up, there could still be some life in him. So we're gonna take our time, walk up to him, and then you got to poke him, make sure nothing happens. When we get up there and Gavin pokes him, doesn't move. And what happened, like he fell and he slid a little bit down the hill because it's called Spanish grass out here. And when it lays down, it's slicker than snot. Like if you're side hilling somewhere, you're going down the hill on that stuff. It's like a slip and slide. And so this buck, it fell and slid probably 4 or 5 feet and stopped. And, his right side antlers were under the grass. And so he goes and picks it up. And there's a buck that I've never seen up there. It's a fork on one side and a double main beam spike on the other. Huh. It's a super cool, goofy buck. And I'm actually going to get it mounted for him, but huge body on it. And we're just sitting there looking at it, just enjoying it. And it was perfect double lung top of heart shot. It was just like, you couldn't have placed that arrow better. I was like, so happy, proud of him. I was like, telling him, like, that's the best shot that I've seen in a really long time, son. I'm really proud of you. That's amazing. You realize that, like, once you get everything settled, you calm down a little bit, you'll be able to get dialed. And so we're sitting there taking photos, just kind of, we're not even being really quiet. We're just like talking normal, taking photos. And all of a sudden, here's like, I was like, what is that? And we look up, and another buck is walking down the trail. Probably had smelt that hot doe that was there earlier. And it's just like, stops, looks at us, and then keeps walking like towards us, but around this tree. And I'm like, there's no way this is happening right now. There's just no way. And Gavin's like, well, can I shoot it? I'm like, you have a second tag. Yeah, grab your bow and shoot the thing. And so what happened was we were taking photos. So the bow was in front of the deer and he's behind the deer taking photos. Yeah. And when he got up, the deer rolled over on top of his bow. And so now this buck, that when at this time is only 30 yards away, I'm trying to lift this deer up off his bow to grab the bow to give him to shoot this thing. And I'm like, all right, you need to dial it back to 20. You need to get the arrow in there. And I was just still trying to do the little estrus bleats or whatever. And it turns and like just in the rut, just dumb as shit. Turns and starts walking right at my son. My full draw. And he goes, where do I hit it? I'm like, base of the neck. It was walking right at him. He ends up releasing the arrow. It's like 10 feet from him when he shoots it. On the ground. We're crazy. On the ground. It is mind blowing. It would, there's no way it will ever happen like that again. There's no way. Shoots it. Blood goes flying everywhere. And he's like, what do I do? And it's like, it was spinning around, running around, and finally just piled over. And I look at him, I was like, you don't realize what just happened. Like, this just never happens. I've been hunting for a vast majority of my life, and I've never once ever seen anything like that happen. And he's like, man, it's like, and then he's a typical kid. He's like, man, I did better than you've ever did, huh? Or like, it's like, and he's bragging about it. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I got $2 last day. And it's like, Gavin, you shut up. Just shut up now. It's like, you can do that later, but like right now I'm still trying to compute what's going on.
That's awesome.
And so typical kid, right? Like, Dad, you're a horrible hunter. Why did you never be able to do this? I did this on the last day.
That's so awesome.
And so I drug the deer over. I have some photos of both the deer there that he got. And it was an amazing experience. But then I'm sitting there after we're taking photos. I'm like, he shot $2 and I'm the only one with the backpack. and then it all just clicks. And I was like, this is going to suck. And I didn't have my trekking poles, which I used to make fun of them back in the day. It was like, that's the stupidest thing in the world. But with the weighted pack, trekking poles are a necessity. Now, I tell everybody, they get trekking poles. Just the way you're able to disperse weight, hiking around with that, it's game changer. And so, and the funnier thing is I had just started washing my bigger pack, so I only had a small day pack on the same frame as my big pack, but it's a smaller cradle pack. It's the Kafaru Striker. So it's like a sling with a little pack on it. And like, I'm going to have to shoehorn 2 deer in this thing and somehow get it off the mountain. And so we started butchering it. I had 6 bags. So I'm putting like doubling up on the legs and the bigger bags, putting all the scrap in one, like just trying to get, and I'm looking at my pack like I'm going to look like the Clampets coming out of this. It's going to be bad. And so I get it in there. Luckily, I had extra straps to like just attach everything.
Yeah.
And I have the video of that too. Me just trying to get up with that pack. It was brutal. It was, I'd go out and say it was probably 150 pounds, 170 pounds in that region in my pack. And all bone-in legs. And then entire rib rolls, entire back straps, all the neck meat. And then I also, the one that we were mounting, I had basically the hide from half the body and the head on my pack.
That's crazy.
And I'm sitting there, I was like, and I have to get up the hill to the fire road. And then luckily the fire road's all downhill from there. And I can't go down to the truck because it gets super thick with poison oak and everything. It's like, I would just be like the worst experience of my life. So it was like lesser of evils, clear path uphill to then eventually downhill. That's what I'm going to do. So I finally get up on my feet. I'm like, this is just going to suck. And it would have been like a 30-minute walk with no feet or no weight on it. And it took us an hour and 15 minutes. I was sitting there as a dead sweat, just little steps here and there, just trying to get down. And finally got there, got the meat in the cooler, sat there and just enjoyed it. And I was texting my buddy Matt that I'd been hunting with, and we went down. He has property that's about 20 minutes south of where I can hunt. And so I went down there, showed him, and he's like, big old hug and stuff. And we're talking about like, hey, remember when we went down to hike into that spot, didn't see anything, and then now you got this? It's like, yeah. Matt, when did you ever shoot 2 deer in one day with your bow, huh? And it's like doing all that. So just razzing everybody. It's like, you little shit. I was like, I'm raising you right. You're all right. But that's probably the most memorable deer experience. But like, it's more of just seeing my son do that now and just experiencing that, and then him walking up the deer and like thanking it without me even saying anything. He petted it, he's looking at it, inspecting everything, looking at all the ears, the nose, like just he's never been that close to a deer before other than like something I brought home. So like experiencing on the hoof, he's looking at it, like, this is wild how big these things are, as opposed to him at the time he's 12. And it was cool to see him experience all that for the first time. And it sparked that time that I experienced that the first time. And it was just one of those things that I still like go back and watch that video on my phone of him seeing that deer. I look at it at least 2 times a week. Just like, oh, it's one of those things that you could have the shittiest day and you watch that video. It's like, all right, I'm good. We're ready to go.
That's amazing.
It was an amazing experience. It's super cool. So, and now I'm going to be applying him for out of state and try to get him out to Colorado, possibly next year, the year next, or the year after that or something. Try to get him on elk, but I'd like to get him out just hunting as much as possible. And then I have a few more years for my other boys. My middle son's 10 and my youngest is 8. So I have a few years till they can start hunting deer, but I've already taken my youngest out duck hunting. My middle son doesn't show as much interest in hunting, but this year he actually was like, no, I would actually like to get my license and just go with you and check it out.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, I don't want to force it on him because that's just not who I am. But if he wants to go, it's like, all right, if you're going, I'm trial by fire, son. We're out and we're doing it all. I want you to experience it all. So I don't think he quite grasped that yet, but he's going to have to eventually figure that out. But
yeah,
I'm going to be able to eventually experience that 2 more times, which is awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. So,
oh man, that is crazy. That is just the craziest stories.
And it was one of those things, like I had my phone in my hand taking pictures of him with that deer. And that moment happened. I literally dropped my phone and I was like, thinking back, so I could have easily just filmed that deer come in too. It would have been so amazing, but I was so focused, like, yeah, shoot that thing. I'm just trying to get the bow out from under the deer. It was just a perfect storm of just nonsense. But it was, I can't believe it happened. I still can't believe that happened. And there's just no way that is ever going to happen again. And just have him being able to experience that for his first ever killing an animal of that size is going to be, is super special.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, how could you even like, you don't even need the phone. I mean, for that kind of thing, sometimes it's just, it has to just be you know. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
it tarnished the phone and the videos sometimes tarnish it for sure. That experience and stuff. So I'm glad that like I have that and he has that, and something that both of us can, as we grow old and stuff, just experience together and be like, hey, remember that one time? It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, I'm super pumped up about that.
That's super cool, man. Awesome, and I really appreciate all the stuff you just shared. And yeah, man, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate. I can't lie.
Man, you know, I'd love for everyone to be able to get the chance to check out your page. You know, if you want to just let everyone know where to go to, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So Instagram's just Cali __ bow hunter. I try to post as frequent as possible hunting. And if you guys have any questions, compound related, I've been doing it for 23 years. So I have a little bit of knowledge in that, helping that. Yeah, just got some good little videos and tidbits and tips and stuff on there if you guys are interested. That's where it's at.
And now we're going to be diving deep into stick bow territory.
And stick bow, I always say it's insanely infuriating yet amazing. That's the best way I can describe it, because there's so many more variables in it than compound. It's like compound, you have all these mechanisms that aid in the release. And then I'm not using a clicker, so I have to wait. Like I get to that point and feel it with my shoulder locking up against my spine. And then one thing I'm still having issues with is the flex of my hand, figuring out how to get it right. So I have it out further away from me, and then I bring it in and that tends to lock in better and keep my hand a little bit better and to get more repeatability. But yeah, it's a whole new thing for me, and it's something that's absolutely amazing. I've been having way too much fun with it. So I just need to stick with it and realize that it's not the end of the world if I miss a deer. Cause like when I missed a deer at 22 yards last year with the stick bow, shot right over its back. And I was like, I could have used a billy club to kill that thing. And I just missed it with this. Like, what am I doing? I just got in my head, and I went several times after that with it, and I was like, I'm just gonna get the compound bow. I'm just gonna get it. And then it was like, I think the next week I shot the big buck, but I just need to stick with it and not take the easy route out, because I can hunt only with archery at this spot. So I know I can kill something with a compound, and I like having meat in the freezer, because this year from end of August to October, we went through 200 pounds of venison in my house. So we eat a lot of wild game. And so I always, in my mind, I'm like, I need to get this meat. It helps out, and just costs and everything. I just need to get this squared away as best possible. But this year I've told myself, and I've told my buddy as well, as like July opening month, I'm just doing stick bow, see how that goes, and hopefully figure out an animal that's doing a certain route that I can utilize and make sure he slips up on. So,
it's gonna work out, man. I know it's gonna work out for you. And once it happens, you're gonna just fall in love. You're gonna fall in love again.
I know. I love it. Like, I love it, but it's like the one thing is like, I knew I could have killed that thing with my compound. So it's kind of just one of those things that got my head, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? And it just comes back to like, I want to. I I feel it gives the animal a better chance, obviously, since I missed. But yeah, I want to get into it. I've always wanted to, but it's that mental it screws with you, man.
Yeah.
There's all those variables and stuff. It just screws with you. So I was weak. I was weak last year. And so I'm gonna make it happen this year. I'm gonna make it happen.
I hope nothing but the best, man. I know it's gonna work.
I appreciate it. There'll definitely be about 7 million photos if I do kill one. All right, it's just gonna be plastered everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Dude, I really appreciate everything once again. And like I said before, guys, go check out Austin's Instagram page. You're gonna absolutely love it. And like you said, you got the tips, so reach out by all means, and just make sure to connect with them.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries, brother.